The Wrath of the Triple Goddess is the second book in the Chalice of Gods trilogy by Rick Riordan. It's pretty much the newest PJO book, and it's somehow one of the most controversial books Rick has published today. I mentioned a while back that I recently finished this book, and I have a lot of thoughts, so I decided why not make a video? So today, I'll be giving my thoughts on the book while exploring why this was so controversial to some fans. Before getting into it though, there will obviously be spoilers for this book, so you've been warned. And with that, let's get started. I posted the Chalice of Gods book review last year, and if you watched that video, then you'd know that I rated it a 5 out of 5 stars and expressed how much I genuinely enjoyed it. I liked the light vibe and low stakes the book had, and seeing Percy, Annabeth, and Grover grow old together was a surreal experience as a longtime fan. It's nice to see Percy, Annabeth, and Grover get together again, and I immediately got excited about the news of the Wrath of the Triple Goddess, since it takes place immediately after the Chalice of Gods. So finally getting a copy of this book made me so happy. Reading it on the other hand made me feel a range of emotions. But first, let's talk about the premise. Basically, the Chalice of Gods trilogy follows Percy as a senior in high school. He has to get 3 recommendation letters from gods to get into New Room College with his girlfriend Annabeth Chase, and that means taking on 3 quests for the gods. Percy already did one for the Cupbearer of the Gods or Ganymede in the Chalice of Gods, and in the Wrath of the Triple Goddess, Percy will take a quest from the goddess of magic Hecate. Meeting Hecate again from the House of Hades was so interesting to me. I remember feeling so intrigued about Hecate when reading the House of Hades, and the one thing I remember most about her is when she helped Hazel Levesque manipulate the mist, which was a skill Hazel really mastered in not just that book, but also in the next book or the Blood of Olympus. It's a pretty nice callback to the Heroes of Olympus, and I expected Hecate to be pretty serious or mysterious somehow because of how she was presented in the House of Hades, but nothing could have prepared me for how Rick portrayed her in the Wrath of the Triple Goddess. She was surprisingly chill compared to how I imagined her last time, and that kind of threw me off somehow. I mean, I kind of get that Rick tries to lighten up the mood by making the gods feel more human so that we can connect with them, but Hecate's personality in the Wrath of the Triple Goddess wasn't something I expected. She still felt like a goddess, but I guess I was expecting something more serious, but I think Hecate isn't fully to blame because it kind of goes for the entire book's tone. So let me explain. The Wrath of the Triple Goddess felt just like the Chalice of Gods, in the sense that it was light and funny at times, even if Percy was about to die, but I think the Chalice of Gods handled the tone better. The Wrath of the Triple Goddess had some good jokes that genuinely made me laugh, but there were times when I felt like the humor was kind of too much. As I mentioned in my Riordanverse misconceptions video from last time, I do get that Percy is pretty funny or goofy in his own right, but I also pointed out that he isn't always like that. Percy has his serious moments as well, but the Wrath of the Triple Goddess doesn't really show that. Somehow, there were a lot of jokes about Percy's intelligence, like how he thinks to himself that he can't do things without Annabeth, or how there was this part of the book that said he feels like he's not enough for Annabeth. I actually had to pause on that note, because that really hurts if you think about it. Percy and Annabeth have been through hell and back, and I mean that both literally and figuratively, but the idea that Percy thinks he doesn't deserve Annabeth is just heartbreaking. I mean, I do understand that Percy has his self-esteem issues. It's pretty prominent in PJO, and I would even suggest that the reason he didn't see Annabeth's feelings for him immediately, even if they were so obvious, was because he thinks she's way out of his league, and therefore it would be impossible for her to like someone like him. Percy is dense, but part of the reason for that is his insecurity in PJO. However, the idea now that Percy still feels like he doesn't deserve Annabeth is something I don't like. We've seen Percy and Annabeth declare their love for each other so many other times in not just PJO, but also in the Heroes of Olympus. And the Wrath of the Triple Goddess takes place months after the Heroes of Olympus. So why would Percy randomly think that he doesn't deserve Annabeth in some way? I get that it could be the old insecurity creeping in, but I think Percy has other problems than worrying about their perfectly fine relationship. Percy has to finish so much schoolwork in high school and survive pet sitting with Hecate. I don't think it's necessary to add Percy wondering if he deserves Annabeth somehow, especially since it's another jab to how Percy is dumb and Annabeth is the smart one. Because, again, I've reiterated this in my old video. Percy is not dumb, and Rick has to remember that. But anyway, aside from all that, I think the book proved to be enjoyable enough. It's not really the most amazing plot-wise, but it was a nice way to see the trio again. Their task of pet-sitting Hecate's pets, Gale and Hecuba, was an interesting enough plot idea. It felt like a goofy side quest, so I kind of zoned out when Hecate was telling them how to feed the pets or how to take care of them. Like, I kind of wish that they did something much more exciting, like finding the chalice from the last book, but somehow I found myself enjoying Hecuba and Gale. We already met Gale in the House of Hades, so I was surprised that she made another appearance here in this book. I didn't remember much about her though, so I didn't really know what to expect, but I did enjoy giving Gale a backstory. However, I was more intrigued by Hecuba, or the Hellhound. I think it's pretty obvious on my channel that I'm a huge Greek mythology fan, and Percy Jackson pretty much introduced it to me, so when I first read the name Hecuba in the Wrath of the Triple Goddess, I immediately remembered Hecuba from mythology. Hecuba was the wife of King Priam of Troy, and they had 19 kids. Don't ask me how, that's just how mythology works somehow, but anyway, my most favorite part of this book was when we got the flashback of Hecuba mourning the death of her children. It's such a powerful scene to me, especially when Percy felt the rage that Hecuba felt. This scene also reminded me that Rick can write powerful moments like this, but he tends to make things more funny for the sake of a light tone. I guess because we usually talk about how funny and unserious he is sometimes in his writing, but I kind of wish he could write something serious. I mean, I'm not really requesting for something dark or gritty, but I just think it's important to balance out the funny and serious side that the PJO and Heroes of Olympus absolutely excelled in. But anyway, I did love Hecuba's story better than Gale's, and it was a nice touch to add. One overarching idea in the Wrath of the Triple Goddess was the fact that Sally Jackson could have been a witch under Hecate's sorcery school, and that was a really random idea. I've always mentioned how much I love Sally, but was this really necessary? I get that she can see through the mist and could have been a legacy of a god or a titan, but Hecate making a witch school is a really random fact. I guess I can see it, but I didn't really get that interested in the plotline. I think Rick could have polished it a bit more to make it more interesting, but I think it was a nice enough detail. Overall, I actually did enjoy this book, even if some parts like the Percy is dumb jokes or the timeline inconsistencies were here and there. I'd probably give this book a 4 out of 5 or a 3.8. Like, it's not that bad, but not really something I would reread in the future. I did have fun, but nothing could have prepared me for how controversial this book actually was, and let's talk about it. I went online and I got a lot of thoughts. Some people genuinely enjoyed reading it because it felt nostalgic, and seeing the trio was nice, but others disliked it so much that they called it the worst PJO book, while the rest were just neutral as they liked some parts but disliked other things. Personally, I think I'm on the last side. The Wrath of the Triple Goddess is considered controversial in the fandom right now, ever since its release last year, because of how different it feels. And it's kind of in a bad light. Fans like me were also upset over the idea that Percy thinks he's dumb, and the detail on Annabeth's friends from architecture. I think that scene was personally my least favorite from the whole book. Like, I'm not trying to say that Annabeth shouldn't have her own friends in architecture, but the fact that there's this girl who thinks Percy is too dumb for Annabeth, and Percy kind of agreed with her, just ticks me off so much. Not to mention that there's this throwaway joke of those friends saying that Annabeth was going to do their homework, just doesn't feel like something Annabeth would do. Annabeth is a very ambitious person, and you gotta remember that her fatal flaw is hubris. She would not let anybody walk all over her like that and do somebody else's homework. I know it's just a small joke or a minor detail in the book, but that kind of annoyed me. Because of the fact that Percy and Annabeth felt pretty off sometimes in the book, people also analyzed Grover's character. To be honest, I think Grover was okay. I think he's in character enough for a good part, but there were times when I felt like he was too careless or too insecure. Like, don't get me wrong, Grover was kind of like this too in the previous books, but Rick kind of turned it up to 11 in this book. Like, Rick made Grover be the one to mess up and lose both Gale and Hecuba in this book over strawberry ice cream. I get that it might have been a trap set by Hecate, so I try to understand it, but throughout the book, Grover's kind of treated as a punching bag until you randomly remember that he's a Cloven Elder. Like, this is the same satyr who made the literal god of the wild Pan proud, found all the children of the Big Three, and released Panic in the Battle of the Labyrinth. Although Grover is prone to bullying and is extremely hard on himself, he does grow more to be a stronger person in PJO. He's not someone who constantly makes mistakes or messes up like Grover in this book, so even if I did like some Grover moments here in the Wrath of the Triple Goddess, I did notice what fans were trying to say about him. So overall, people complained about the Wrath of the Triple Goddess because of the mischaracterization of the trio at some point and the timeline issue. There were two instances of this in the book. First was when Percy mentioned Leo Valdez was giving him Spanish lessons, which is so weird to think about because Leo is supposed to be dead in this part of the timeline. Like, okay, quick background. Leo sacrificed himself to defeat Gaia in the blood of Olympus, and we're supposed to believe that the Chalice of Gods trilogy takes place months after this. So Leo is technically dead to everyone. People don't know that Leo actually survived, so Leo can't be giving Percy Spanish lessons around this time. The second instance of this was when Percy mentions how Nico D'Angelo helped him pick out a gift for Annabeth in Italy, and this is another weird thing because it references the Italian story. Yeah, I can't pronounce that properly, but I bet you guys get the point. This short story was published by Rick, and we don't really know if it's canon to the Riordanverse until Percy mentioned it in the Wrath of the Triple Goddess. This story shows Percy and Nico in Italy trying to find the gift for Annabeth, and Percy mentions how people are in quarantine and are doing social distancing. So it's an immediate reference to the COVID-19 pandemic when Rick wrote this. So with that note, when I tried to explain the Riordanverse timeline in my previous video, I placed this as the most recent story in the timeline, but somehow Percy remembered it in the Wrath of the Triple Goddess. This makes it seem like COVID happened sometime after the Blood of Olympus, but at the same time, that doesn't really make any sense because there's no mention of a quarantine or social distancing in the Wrath of the Triple Goddess. So, is the pandemic over for them? Like, when did the pandemic happen if Nico and Percy already went shopping some time ago by the Wrath of the Triple Goddess? It's a really weird timeline at this point, but it kind of bugged a lot of fans, so that's why I had to point it out. Ultimately, that's the Wrath of the Triple Goddess for you. It's controversial in the fandom today because of some inconsistencies in the timeline, added with some off-putting moments from the trio. Personally, I still managed to like this book despite its flaws. It's a light book just like the Chalice of Gods, but I would have preferred it if Rick managed the tone better along with some other parts, like the characters. Despite this, I'm still curious about what he'll do about the third book and the Nico and Will book coming up soon. I don't know if he'll try to fix the timeline more, but overall, those are my thoughts for the Wrath of the Triple Goddess so far. So how about you? What do you think of the Wrath of the Triple Goddess? Let me know in the comments down below.